an iPod, a phone, and an internet communicator. An iPod, a phone. Are you getting it?
Hey! We're recording
Yes, Steve, we're all getting it.
Good! I want to know wherever you are because it is
Morning Somewhere!
For January 9th, 2024.
I said 4, fuck it.
My name is Bernie Burns. With me sitting right over there is Ashley Burns.
I'm living in the fives, baby.
She gets it. She got it, everybody. She totally got it. She got that iPhone.
I did. You know, it took me a long time. Do you know when I got my first iPhone?
Do you know why I said 2024 today?
Why?
Because I was going to say January 45th today, but I didn't. And then
Well, I'm glad you
called
caught
back to
yourself.
yesterday. So I called back to 2024 and said, yes, what? Tell me your story.
I got my my first iPhone in 2012. So before that, I'm pretty sure I initially had remember when they would, before the age of the iPhone, you had PDAs, right? BlackBerry was like the heavy hitter in the office types who would just they'd sit there and they'd be talking to you, but they'd be typing on their BlackBerry. Before that I had a Sidekick. And then in between that I had it was a Microsoft, a Windows
You're the
mobile,
only person I know who had a Windows phone.
Windows Mobile 5 or whatever it was, back in the day. We're talking 2006, 2007. And I loved it and it was great. And then when I moved to Australia and I was working for Xbox, it was you don't have an iPhone.
Remember when...
Also, I got Microsoft phones for free.
Was it the
easy.
first time we met down in Australia? And we were at a Rooster Teeth event and I lost my phone in a cab. And you said, oh, I have a spare mobile phone I can give you because it was almost impossible to get my phone replaced in Australia. And then you showed up with 6 Windows phones? Yeah. I was like, is this girl a drug dealer? What's going on here?
That's what I would do on the weekends. Is I would just stand in an alley with a trench coat and go, anyone want a Windows phone?
Met some really cool, met some cool people on that trip. There was you, and then there was that was the second trip, I think. That must have been the second.
That was the second trip because that was definitely in Sydney.
Yeah, because we were in a cab and you and I were going somewhere. So that would definitely been the second time that I met you.
I'm glad I had you so distracted. You lost your iPhone.
Oh man,
Steve Jobs was really disappointed in you that day.
Yeah, so the reason why we're talking about all this stuff is today is January 9th. It is now the 2025. Whatever, who can do the math on this? Was it 18 years?
Look at us doing the math on
2007 was when the iPhone was announced and debuted, and that was Steve Jobs introducing it. A lot more fanfare for the iPhone than the iPod.
Well, that's because the iPod brought Apple back, right? Apple had been being it's great for a really long time, and then they brought the iPod out, and it was this huge hit and completely dominated this
because of the iPod.
Yes,
he even describes it there as an iPod and a phone and an internet device. Now the least important part of all of that is the iPod part, and then the phone part.
I was going to say I would argue that the phone part is the part that I use the least.
Who knew that the icon that they used to show it's also an internet device was Safari? Who knew what that thing was going to become? It was like a music player and a phone, and also, by the way, it gets you on the internet. And everyone's like, cool, all the things I need all in one thing. And then it turned out all we ever needed was that third one to waste all of our time every second of the goddamn day.
And it does a great job at it.
It does a great job. At it. Yeah. And it's, I always talk about the iPod announcement back when Apple was a dog of a company. There were points in times in the mid-90s where it was are they going to go to business and Microsoft is bailing them out with loans so that Microsoft won't look like a monopoly? And they're propping them up. And then he debuted that iPod in what looks like a Ramada ballroom. And it's there's just everyone's okay, a music player, a flash music player, great. It's no, this is a hard drive, giant hard drive
with
inside
speakers.
this thing. Completely revitalized that company. One of the most amazing things probably in the history of business in America. Is just crazy. And now we can't live without these goddamn things.
No, I loved my iPod. I went through a lot of iPods at first. I got one that was all scraped up, and so my boyfriend at the time actually sanded all the paint off it, and it was just down to the metal.
No, that's cool.
And it was awesome.
Matt Holmes' wife Anna has collected them over the years, and she has one of the very first ones that has a gigantic FireWire port in the top of it. And not like the new FireWire, like the old school one that's got the tapered top. Yeah, it almost looks like an HDMI port in the top It's crazy. It's really crazy. And it would go clack. You had that reel, and it would go clack, 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 clack. Anyway, but yeah. So happy birthday to the iPhone. But we're not burying the lead, even though we are a little bit today. The big news of the day today is the wildfires in not just Southern California, in Los Angeles. Los Angeles
in Los Angeles
on fire, which is just insane. And the most insane part of it, Ashley, is that it's taking place in winter.
Yeah, January. Like this, look, California catches on fire a lot. We're almost used to hearing at some point in the year, like, oh, California is on fire.
Yeah.
As you know, as per usual here in August. But it seems like the fires are unfair regardless. But being on fire in January seems like it's really just
it's unfair.
Too much. It's
unfair.
Too much.
It's just
too
like
unfair.
This isn't fair. It's just not fair. Yeah, in the middle when you would expect to have some break from all this horrible stuff, and there's these fires that are going through, and right now they're concerned it could jump the canyon at this point because it's really just the wind is blowing in an unfortunate direction. And just, it's so crazy. I'm all my feed on Instagram from all my friends in Los Angeles. It's just constant things of what do you do with your pets? Where can you stay if your home is destroyed? Are you in a red flag area? Like there's a whole language that they have now that they've adopted since these fires have begun of like knowing of when they're supposed to evacuate or not. So hope everyone in that area stays safe. Hope everyone's homes stay safe as well. That's got to be a particularly horrible thing to experience when your home is your base. It's where you go when everything else goes wrong.
Right. It's your safe place, right? Like if everything else in the world sucks, just go home.
You're right. Exactly.
And there's from the last I heard, and these numbers are updating constantly because these fires, there's now I think 4 fires that are raging in not in like, the outside the city in the forests outside of Los Angeles, but like in Los Angeles, in the Palisades, the Hollywood Hills are on fire. It's over 1,000 structures, last I heard, that have already been destroyed. That's a lot of homes. That's a lot of home bases.
Right.
And, we play a lot of video games. And so we speak the language of video game and fantasy characters. Like there's a lot of the almost glorification of like, I could live out of a rucksack and I'm going to go, I'm going on the road and everything that I own is going to fit into this pack on my back and I'm going to take it with me and that's all I need. And that's not the kind of people that we are in reality. Like we're people we want our home base and we want our stuff. And that's how we feel safe and that's how we feel comfortable. And that is being burned down for a lot of people.
It is an interesting, very unique kind of luxury that survivalism is a fantasy. Does that make sense?
It does. Yeah, it does make sense.
Yeah, that you can fantasize about being in a survival situation. That is an incredible luxury to be able to do that. But then once you're in that situation, and then it gets exacerbated by every single person in your immediate area is also in that same situation. It's just such a bad scenario. And I hope everyone will be okay. And I hope they're getting this thing under control. There's all this talk about containment, and then they back off of that. And if it does jump this canyon, I think it's the Santa Monica Canyon, because the winds push it over. It just blows these embers across, and then a fire starts somewhere else. That's leading into a densely populated area that could be up to 100,000 people just in that one area.
Well, and the fires have been so bad that they're actually having some real difficulty with containment. Like you're hearing stories now about fire hydrants running dry.
Yes.
Because even though the reservoirs that feed them have been more full than average, especially for this time of year, the fires, there's just so much demand for the water that the fire hydrant, imagine a fire hydrant running dry. That's terrifying.
I would, there's been a lot of pressure on us over the years, I would say for decades, to move to Los Angeles. And water has always been something long-term for me that I looked at, just the sustainability of water in Southern California, among other things as well. But it's just, it's going to reach a crisis there, not just for what they've got now where they can't, put out these fires. I don't know if there's enough water to put out those fires. But it's just something we always looked at. I would say there was probably more pressure on us to move to LA than just about any other kind of pressure,
Yeah, well, because there's so much of entertainment is set directly in LA, and we're gonna see, by the way, a lot of fallout in that industry as a result of these fires. Like already they're delaying, like even little stuff like Oscars nominations, they're delaying because of the fire. But also there's a lot of production, right? Like so TV shows like Fallout Season 2, production is being delayed because everything's on fire.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, we only want the show to be so realistic.
Right.
Am I right?
Right.
We only want like the fun apocalypse, not real apocalypse here.
That's
so
crazy.
Is
this on your radar? This thing that's popped up for me. I wonder if it's because of just the people that I follow in my circles online. Is it on your radar at all? The Matthew McConaughey, Woody Harrelson, Renee Zellweger, Dennis Quaid promotional video they did for filming in Texas.
No.
You have to watch it because it's so funny because all these people have such incredibly different tones, and Matthew McConaughey, when he goes serious, like super serious, and he's very super serious in this, although he has a fantastic closing line in it. We'll link it in the link dump because it's the kind of thing, it's aimed at the Texas legislature to try to increase tax incentives for filming in the state of Texas. So they got some like very notable Texas stars to make this video. And it looks like they're driving down a road in Austin, like on 360 or something like that. It's Woody Harrelson and Matthew McConaughey in a car talking to Renee Zellweger on a phone. And then it also turns out Dennis Quaid's in the back seat, but it's abundantly clear they shot them on entirely different days because they're never together. They don't make any effort to make it seem like they're together.
There's no like shoulders peeking in the frame from someone else.
It's almost like they picked Dennis Quaid up from school or football practice or something.
Hey guys, want to go get milkshakes?
But I do appreciate when people who are very well off will try to do things to create opportunities and jobs for other people. They're incented themselves, sure, but they don't have to do this kind of thing. You know what I mean? It's great that they're lobbying essentially to get more film in Texas.
Right, because like those stars can also go anywhere the filming is.
Yeah.
So it's great that they are willing to step up and do their best to try to get people filming.
Also, Renee Zellweger really busted out the Texas accent.
I didn't know she's Texan.
Yeah, she went to UT. She went to UT same time as McConaughey. She was there as us when we were all there.
I can't help it. I associate her so heavily with Bridget Jones' Diary that I just assumed that she was British.
Oh, you'll laugh when you see this because she leans into the Texas accent. Which I do that too. Have you ever been in situations where I leaned into the Texas accent?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
There's
a lot of
buying
times
a car or talking to like a tradesman. All of a sudden, my Texas accent comes out.
We'll just be standing there talking, and then suddenly Bernie's over there drawling. he's like, all right.
We had a plumber come here
Howdy.
today. We have the opposite problem. It's so interesting, the juxtaposition of us being here in winter. Now we've got about 5 or 6 inches of snow on the ground, it feels like. And so we're constantly on the hunt for troublesome water, right? So we're like hunting for leaking pipes all the time and everything. We had the plumber here, and he has a Doric accent, our plumber who comes in, and this is the guy that's like, when he shows up, he's like, right, well, you got a little, puckle a pipe or two, kicking, and I'm like, I have no idea. What the fuck you just said.
I heard pipe. Could you say the rest again?
Right.
To put it in perspective, so if you've ever watched the movie Brave, which is about, it's all Scottish characters, and one of the 3 suitors, no one can understand him. That's the Doric accent.
Even the local people here you have to lean in and you watch them concentrating when the person starts talking.
I almost feel too like calling it an accent is underselling it because I think that it's also like really specific word usage.
Yes.
So there's a lot of like words that are used in Doric that aren't used.
No.
Elsewhere.
Different vocabulary.
And so, so it is a translation challenge.
It goes beyond a lingo or slang. It's like, it's its full on own vocabulary.
But yeah, it is. It's like as we're like digging our way out of snow and we've got friends in California fleeing their homes. It's a weird juxtaposition. I always felt that way about Australia would have wildfires going at the same time that Queensland would have these terrible floods.
Right.
And so it's like, can you just move the water? Just move it down.
Well,
can you just do that?
And
it's
places,
not that easy, but
there's places that get that though too, because one of my like most shocking images I saw online was when the year that Australia was having all the wildfires and then all the floods, and there was one of those like road signs where they can put the custom messages on, like they set up when like the road closes this date, but it was like careful wildfires ahead. But the sign was like almost underwater from the flood. Like that's how close the wildfires were to the flood, was that a wildfire sign was being flooded.
Right.
It's just crazy.
Yeah, it's like you just want to sit the world or the weather or whatever down and talk to it and be like, look, I feel like we can do things a little bit more efficiently.
Well, to all of our friends in Southern California and Los Angeles, please stay safe. We're hoping the best for you. And always remember, you're more important than your stuff or anything else. So just stay safe.
Losing the stuff sucks, but losing you is worse.
Exactly right. Exactly right. While we're talking, though, about, we were mentioning video games, I wanted to follow up on... earlier this week, I said games that I would never delete, and that spawned a huge discussion in our subreddit, Morning Somewhere, r/Morning Somewhere. And I want to read to you some of these games, see if these are on your list as well, Ashley. Someone said that this was the top one, which I get this completely. Someone said, it's inaccessible, but I still have Halo Reach beta downloaded on my Xbox. That was from Club Me Softly.
I love it.
Bizarre name. I'm going to be reading a bunch of bizarre names here.
Username. No, that reminds me of like PT. People won't delete PT off their PlayStations because even
or Flappy Bird.
Yeah, or Flappy Bird off their phones. It's like I can't do anything with it, but I want to know that it's there.
Do you have anything like that?
No, not really.
Yeah.
Not really, but I'm trying to think of like what I would have had installed that I can't get to anymore.
There's something I've definitely got like that where it's like, oh, I can't uninstall
like
it.
services are down or something, but like emotionally I can't let go of this.
Yeah, I can't delete it, move on.
No, there were a lot of really great games though that were suggested. Hades came up quite a bit.
Yep.
Another one that came up that I loved to see was Tunic.
That was on there. Who said that? That was Apparoon said that, and a couple people backed that up. Mechmaster 2275. I love that a person named Mechmaster is playing Tunic.
Tunic, which by the way, if you haven't played Tunic, this was on our radar very early on. We saw a super early build of it when we did a demo with the developers at E3.
You talk about that all the time. By the way, I have no memory of that.
You have no
memory,
really?
Yeah.
And I remember at the time being like, I think this is going to be something special. It looks. You know, when you can see something and you go, that's got it, whatever it is. And then Tunic has come out, and it is a glorious game. It's a lovely indie game in the style of old school Zeldas, and I can't recommend anything more strongly than go in blind, don't look at guides, and just let the game guide you.
I was weird. Like, I had a gap in my video game history where I was an arcade kid and an Atari kid. I didn't play the 8-bit stuff at all. Like, I didn't play any video games for a while.
Look, you're too good for the 8-bit.
I was too good for the 8-bit stuff.
Well, you went straight to the 16-bit?
And I don't think this was on the list. Who said this one? I really didn't get back into gaming until I played Civilization, the first Civilization, which was like 1991. So there was like a 6-year gap. It doesn't seem that big looking back. But I missed out on like all the Nintendo stuff. And Tunic is definitely a send up to 8-bit games. And it was incredible to me because it made me nostalgic, or I had a feeling of nostalgia for something I never did. Like, it was an incredible experience for me. And it was a weird one where you and I played, not co-op, but like we just sat there on the couch next to each other, and you would play and I would play and we would trade off. And I think we had like the perfect experience playing that game. I would hope that someone else could have that, because it felt like everything was perfectly paced, and this doesn't make sense, and what's happening here is like, and then all of a sudden it would just click instantly. And I felt like it clicked at the same time for both of us. It was a fun experience.
And if you recall, Bernie, that was a game that we didn't look up guides or anything, but what we had instead was a notebook. So like really throwing it back to the 8-bit stuff, right? Is like we had a notebook and we would write things down because there were a lot of puzzles you would sort of put together over time. And so we would keep notes, and we would draw out solutions for puzzles to see if they worked. And then we'd go like, okay, do this and this and this and this. And it was a really amazing experience to go through in that way. And so the game also did a really good job, I feel like, of very subtly guiding us in the directions it needed us to go in. Because at no point were we like, I don't even know, like, how did we get here? Where do we go next? Just, we felt like we were always in the right place, and we had the answers that we needed if we looked for them. It was great.
Yeah, and the other thing about it too was it had boss battles in it that reminded me of the 8-bit era, some of the games I did play back then, which is, this doesn't need to be this hard. Like, I'm not training for the goddamn Olympics. Some of that stuff back then was so I guess it was to make it like have longer playability, but some of those things were so hard. Like, I remember some of the Star Wars games on Nintendo were so fucking hard. And this felt like that at first, but then slowly you'd figure stuff out like patterns and things like that. And that even felt really well paced. So Tunic was great. By the way, the person who suggested Civilization as the game they never delete was Protonius. We have such ridiculous names on this subreddit.
What is with you guys?
Other ones were Rimworld,
Okay.
Binding of Isaac. Someone said no love for PUBG. PUBG for me, I would be on mine, but at some point they updated their anti-cheat to need kernel level access to my processor, and I was
that
like,
was the end.
no, I'm not. I don't trust this company enough to do that. No, thank you.
Yeah, Hollow Knight came up. Cyberpunk actually came up a couple of times. So
I gotta go back and play that. No Man's Sky, was in some of these I saw as well. That's crazy to me.
I know no one
Yeah.
when that game came out,
What a
no one would have
turnaround.
called it. But we've gone back to No Man's Sky a couple of times and played it sort of in a multiplayer setting with the family. And then Teddy got like what did he get? He got a freighter almost immediately, and we were like, okay, well, fine. You threw it. We have nothing to compete with.
No, we warped into a system, and then Teddy warped in, and he had a fleet of like 50 ships behind him. It's like, how did you do this? But what a turnaround for Cyberpunk now. People, it's like a beloved game, and that was like the blood in the water dog pile. We hate this game, and people probably look back and like, well, it wasn't that bad. No, it was horrible. Like it was a complete turn on that thing.
Look, that game came out and it was buggy and it felt unfinished. And so the developers did stick with it. They updated it. They patched a bunch of stuff. They've released expansions that have really added to it, really polished everything up. So from what I understand, now it's a great game, but I can't say that I have any urge to go back to it because I experienced the launch and the shine is off. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense to me.
Like, I know I could go back and it would be great now. I'm not gonna.
Well, there were ones on here that I saw as well. Like, who said, I'm gonna look this up there. Somebody said Halo Wars. And that was kind of interesting to me because I do like Halo Wars. I just can't play an RTS on a console. There was a Lord of the Rings RTS too that was good on Xbox. Consoles are not for RTS to me, as much as I like those two games.
I would mostly agree with you. However, I have to say that one strategy game that I had an amazing time with on console was Civilization Revolution. I know that came out a billion years ago, but and for the most part, strategy games have difficulty translating to a controller setup. But Civilization Revolution, they streamlined a lot of things. It was more cartoony, whatever, but it worked so well on the console. I loved it. I mean, I love Civ on PC, and I felt like if you expect the Civilization PC experience in Revolution, you'd be wildly disappointed. But for its own thing, it was fantastic.
Yeah, and that was Virtuous Vice who said that. And they said, Halo Wars, it's my go-to 20 to 45 minute time killer. And I think that's what keeps a game installed for me. Is like if I can go to the game and I can play it for about half an hour and it's very reliable, fun experience, and then I can get out of it easily. Like I'm not trapped into it, you know? I want to relive the experience of a kid when your mom's yelling and you're like, I can't save.
Mom, I'm in the middle of a game.
It's so
Dinner's ready.
By the way, it's so funny because we had this conversation with Finn just last night because we told him it was time to stop. He was on his tablet. He had his tablet time, his screen time, and he was playing Minecraft in creative mode. And we said, you need to stop. And he shut it off and got very mad. And we go, no. We understand you got to get to a place where you need to save.
Get to your house or whatever. That's fine. We get that.
We had a whole gamer family discussion. Yeah. Look, we're the cool parents. We get it.
I'm not a regular mom. I'm a cool mom.
We know you've got to get to a point where you can stop. We were just telling you to start that process.
Right.
So we worked it out. It was nice.
We're such great parents.
So while we're talking about community stuff, we'll talk about it tomorrow, but this Monday or the early part of this coming week, we'll talk about it, like I said, tomorrow. We're going to ask everyone to do a sharing day where you share the podcast. Come join the subreddit if you're not on the subreddit. Maybe go out there in other forums where you are if people are asking, like, what's a good podcast to listen to? So we're going to make a concentrated effort as a group on Monday, and then we'll make sure we have a good show that day so we don't embarrass you.
Yeah, we'll do our best.
What the fuck did you tell me to listen to? This guy can't even pronounce LeBron James's kid's name. All right, well, Ashley, who do we have?
He said it's January 45th.
Who do we have to thank? They're still living in 2024. Who do we have to thank for listening to us before sharing day?
I would like to say a big thank you to early adopters Joe Reswood and Mooney for sponsoring this episode of our show at patreon.com/morningsomewhere.
All right, well, that does it for us today, January 45th, 2025. or happen January 45th, 2024. We will be back to talk to you tomorrow. We hope you will be here as well.
Bye, everybody.